Video, we will read a Stinky Plant Hike. And this would be a story. So first, we would want to look at our written questions. I like to know what I'm looking for when I'm reading for my written questions. With multiple choice, it doesn't always matter as much. So we have, why does Roger ask Mary so many questions? We'll want to look for that when we're reading. And then our next question, read these paragraphs. Ew, what stinks, Mary exclaimed. Ew, what stinks, Mary asked again. Her shoe accidentally crushed a plant. The smell made tears come to her eyes. Why does the author repeat, ew, what stinks, in paragraphs 1 and 19? All right, these are interesting questions. And now we'll read our text. Ew, what stinks, Mary exclaimed. Mary was hiking with her friend, Roger. Mary liked hiking with Roger because he knew about plants. It was early spring. They walked along a narrow trail through wet, swampy land. A slow-moving stream wound beside the path. On the bank, Mary saw purplish-brown, leaf-like hoods poking up from the soil, each one wrapped around a yellow, pulpy blob. To Mary, they seemed like aliens from another planet. She was curious and inched closer to Roger, an inch closer. You'll be sorry, said Roger. Mary leaned down. She poked one with a stick. A foul odor met her nose. These smell like skunk, she said. Congratulations, said Roger. You've discovered skunk cabbage. The purple part is called the spathe, and the yellow is the flower. But why does it smell so bad? Mary asked. What do you think? Roger replied. Mary thought for a moment. To keep people away, she said. Think, said Roger, and look again. Mary gazed at the strange-looking plant. Upon careful examination, she noticed flies, butterflies, bees, and beetles. To attract insects, she said triumphantly. But why? Asked Roger. Mary crinkled her eyebrows and frowned slightly while she pondered his question. Slowly, a smile crept across her face. I know, she said. Pollen. Wait a minute. So if we were going to look, these words, we would have not examination. We would have, one of the words was triumphantly. So when she says something triumphantly, if you had a triumph, it would mean that you did something really good. So for her to say it triumphantly, that means she's excited that she's gotten the answer she's been looking for. And there was one other, ponder. Ponder is just another way to say somebody's wondering about something. If somebody was pondering, they're just thinking or wondering. Right, Roger said. Some insects eat rotting things. They are attracted to stinky smells because to them it means there's food nearby. While they'll crawl around looking for food, they collect pollen. When they fly or crawl away, they bring the pollen to other plants. So the stinky smell of skunk cabbage fools them, said Mary. Right, again, said Roger. Let's see what else we can find. They continued hiking. Soon Mary and Roger came to an open grassy field with sandy soil. As they walked along, they noticed tall grass-like plants dotting the landscape. Ew, what stinks? Mary asked again. Her shoe accidentally crushed a plant. The smell made tears come to her eyes. This smells like garlic, she said. It is wild garlic, said Roger. How is it different from skunk cabbage? It smells different, said Mary. Good, what else? Roger asked. The leaves are different, Mary said. What else? Roger asked again. Mary wiped her eyes and peered at the plant. She looked and looked but couldn't think of anything. No insects, said Roger. Why? Mary asked. The leaves of wild garlic contain sulfur-like compounds. They are released when the leaf is crushed. They are what make you cry. They also protect the plant by keeping insects from chewing on the leaves, Roger exclaimed. Then Roger grinned. Let's go home and have some garlic bread, he said. Mary smiled. That stinks, she said. On the way back, Mary reviewed what she learned on their Stinky Plant Hike. Plants stink for different, sometimes opposite reasons. Certain plants, like skunk cabbage, stink to attract insects. Other plants, like wild garlic, stink to keep them away. Wait, I have to see what the plants look like. All right, so this would be our skunk cabbage. And when they talked about the pulp in the beginning of our story, I think that's like the middle part here, like the pulp or the pit of a plant. And then the other one, I don't know what wild garlic would look like. This would be our wild garlic. And that, I don't know what the people, I guess if you ever got the garlic, it's supposed to be maybe the root of the garlic is what people eat. But regardless, that would be the stinky cabbage and wild garlic. All right, so you would have answered the 2 questions here, because now we will go over our questions. We have, why does Roger ask Mary so many questions? Now, if we go up, we would want to first look at the beginning, right? So we know that Mary was hiking with Roger, her friend. Mary liked hiking with Roger because he knew about plants. So we can assume here, if you were with your friend and you liked being with them because they knew about plants, we could probably assume that Mary and Roger hike a lot, maybe, and talk about plants. So normally, I guess if you had a friend who was questioning you, it's almost kind of like he's giving her a quiz, right? Because he's saying, what do you think, Roger replied, to keep people away. And then he says, think and look again. And then Roger says, but why? We could assume that he's asking her these questions because she knows, because he knows that she likes to think and likes to figure things out herself. Because when she does answer him, she'll say, to attract insects, she said triumphantly. So we could say that this is like their friendship dynamic. So dynamic would be like how 2 people kind of get along. So we could say, Roger asks Mary many questions because she enjoys figuring out the answers herself. And so if we were going to use, now we need to find our 2 details, right? So when we're looking for our 2 details, our first sentence should be kind of broad. Like it should just simply answer the question. So now when we're going to look for our details, the details are what I explain when we're kind of brainstorming our answer. So one really good detail we could use is the fact that Mary likes hiking with Roger because he knew about plants. But see, that doesn't answer really why he's asking her the questions. So we're going to need another detail there. So if I was going to use that as my detail, I could say in paragraph 2, because notice these paragraphs are numbered here, right? So I could say in paragraph 2, the author says that, what was her name? Mary likes hiking with Roger because he knows so much about plants. And then we could say, this shows that they have a friendship where Mary likes to learn things from Roger. So I'm explaining my detail. And then I feel like how she answers the questions really shows that she likes him asking her. Because if you just wanted to know the answer, if you asked your friend like, hey, what's that over there? And then they start asking you all these questions, and maybe you just wanted to know, and you weren't really in the mood to take a quiz from your friend. But in this case, Mary triumphantly answers. She doesn't seem annoyed at all from her dialogue and the descriptions the author's using. And she keeps asking why. So we could say that this would be, they're kind of like on a learning hike but I'm still going to use my triumphantly one. So I could say here, another detail that shows Mary enjoys answering, or we could say enjoys figuring out questions for herself, is when she answers Roger triumphantly. Here we have triumphantly in paragraph 12. In paragraph 12, this shows that Mary likes to answer Roger's questions because it makes her, what could we say? We could say this shows that Mary likes to answer Roger's questions because it makes her happy, or because she gets excited. She gets excited when she answers her own question. Also, because she really started with the story, or started the questions, because that's our next question on the test too. Ew, what stinks? We could say that this is how they kind of get along. They ask each other questions and then figure things out. So basically, Mary explained what stunk by Roger kind of quizzing her on it. So in our next one, when it says, why does the author, actually this question was longer, just so we know. So this question they gave us both. Ew, what stinks, exclaimed Mary. Ew, what stinks? Mary asked again. Her shoe accidentally crushed a plant. The smell made tears come to her eyes. This one's asking, why does the author repeat this? And so obviously this is a fiction story, right? And that means the author decides what these characters say. So to make her say it twice, we could say that this shows, first, this is an example of repetition. So whenever an author repeats the same thing more than twice, you could say they're using repetition to draw the reader's attention to something. So in the case of this story, we could say that our attention is being drawn to the fact that there's two plants that stink, and Mary wants to figure out why they stink. What's the purpose of a plant being stinky? So like this plant actually eats bugs. So when it stinks, bugs come in and think they're going to eat something, but then really they get eaten by the plant. So that'd be like one of those meat-eating plants, carnivorous plants they call it. So a carnivorous plant is one that eats meat or bugs. And then the next one was the garlic, right, which people eat. So we could say here, the author, well, first we could kind of say what the story is about. So we could say like, the story is about two friends who are looking for smelly plants on a hike. Or we could say, we don't really know if they were looking for them, but we know that she likes to explore, right? We could say the story is about two friends on a hike. And in lines 1 and 19, Mary asks her friend Roger why the plants, or what stinks. What stinks? So now, what we did here, we simply answered the question. So the question is saying, why does the author repeat it? We're saying the story is about two friends on a hike, and in lines 1 and 19, Mary asks her friend Roger, what stinks? We could say, we want why. We could say this. Mary asks her friend Roger, what stinks? Because they are on a stinky plant hike. That is also the title of the story, Stinky Plant Hike. But I'm not going to, I could put it in quotes, but we could say the reason she's asking what stinks. One reason I think we could say is because they're on a stinky plant hike and they're possibly looking for stinky plants. They didn't really say it, but we can assume they're looking for different types of plants, right? Because she likes to go on walks with a friend who knows a lot about plants. So for here, we could say the story is about two friends on a hike. And in lines 1 and 19, Mary asks her friend Roger what stinks because they are on a stinky plant hike. We could say the author is using repetition to show, we could say, to show that Mary likes to ask her friend Roger questions about plants. In line 1, she is asking about a skunk cabbage, and in line 19, she is asking about wild garlic, which shows that Mary learned a lot on her hike, on her Stinky Plant Hike. I'll say Stinky Plant Hike. We just want to show that the reason she's repeating it is because they're specifically on a Stinky Plant Hike and they come across two different types of plants, a skunk cabbage and a wild garlic. But you could have many different answers for this one. You could also say that she's asking because she wants to know more about the plants. We could say that's the theme of our story, having friends that you like to learn with. You could also say that here. You could say the author repeats the phrase, ew, what stinks, in paragraphs 1 and 19 because Mary and Roger come across, I'll put it down here, come across two different plant species that are smelly. The title of the story is A Stinky Plant Hike, which shows, or we could say and in paragraph 2, the author says, Mary likes hiking with Roger because he knows a lot about plants. We could say the theme of the story is learning new things with friends can be fun because Mary asks Roger lots of questions about the skunk cabbage and the wild garlic. And then we could say at the end of the story, we don't really know if she likes garlic because he said he was going to make garlic bread. This is kind of supposed to be a joke. When they say, then let's go home and have some garlic bread. And then she says, that stinks. On the way back, she reviewed what she learned on their Stinky Plant Hike. So the fact that she reviewed it shows that she was there to learn. We could have also put that in this answer, or in our first answer. We could have said, we know that could have been another piece of evidence. Actually, I'll put it in there. If I said, a final piece of evidence that proves Mary and Roger, or proves Mary wanted Roger to ask her questions was when she was walking home and reviewing the information she learned on their hike. So remember, these are very detailed answers. So you wouldn't need to have 3-4 pieces of evidence, right? You wouldn't have an answer this long. We just added, I'll put that here. This will be another piece of evidence. You don't need to have all those pieces of evidence, but we can. Or that's some that we found. So this shows you can really find evidence anywhere in the story, right? So then we could say at the end of the story, same answer kind of using. Mary is reviewing what she learned about what stunk on their hike. That's kind of a closing sentence there. So in your typical written response, you usually want like 3 to 4 sentences. And you want to make sure that you're adding these details, 2 details, but they don't have to be quotes. And they don't have to be like really long. And you can also figure out that you can really make anything a detail as long as you provide or you kind of say why you think it's a detail. That's what we call interpretation. So you take a detail and you give it meaning for what the question is asking. So that would be our lesson for a stinky plant hike.